before now. So I don't know what's coming. These guys, yeah. Okay, these guys can be... Again, my core units like to use elite reinforcements, where the rest, I generally don't. I like to, in these type of games, turn my core units into sort of elite forces over time. Makes me care a little more about the unit, not just, oh, it's lost or oh, it isn't. So they come after the artillery. They're giving me time to get here. Oh, there we come. What's those, Panzer IIs? That's a Panzer III. Where are the Tigers? Ah, Martyr 2. I didn't know if there were Martyr 2s in North Africa. You're gonna see that now. No. We've held the Kasserine path for 2 turns. We didn't get an interesting commander. I don't know who you were talking about, but first let's bring you up here. And since this is our only in the area that's becoming a bit of a nuisance, let's try to kill it. Now, We'll risk, well, before we do that, so, okay. Black 88. Ah, fuck, Verlaine. I'm not going to keep hanging it way out there. These guys are going to move to the mountains, though, the Rangers. Maybe they might be able to hold out there. Let's just move over here to sort of give them a bit of delaying action there. You have to kill a tank with a U.S. unit. Okay, you destroyed a tank with it. Oh, okay. Good to know, Van Bishop. We'll kill one over here, I hope, really soon with our American armor. Bring you up here, Bell. That. I know they can come up this railway link here. We'll see how they want to push. If they want to push. Let's move to there. Now. Martyr 3. Okay, couldn't quite tell what that was. That I feel confident in holding here, not terribly, but somewhat. I guess my center seems very, very open. Okay, so with the collapse of the Africa Corps, and I don't know right offhand what the Italian army in North Africa was called, out in front of El Alamein in the Second Battle of El Alamein. The first battle is the Germans' offensive. That's an attempt to break through and push into Alexandria area. The Germans and the Italians just take too long in building it up. Montgomery is a very good military commander. Don't let anybody ever convince you otherwise. He's not the perfect one, or he's not always right, but he's a very good military commander. He was, I think, just a divisional commander, I'm not quite sure, during the whole, Battle of France. And so he sees what happens there. Gets, evacuated out through Dunkirk and all of that. He's eventually put in charge of the Western Desert Force. It's just, he's not the theater commander, he's the Western Desert Force commander. I think it's Harold Alexander is the British overall commander-in-chief in the Middle East or whatever. Montgomery, one thing compared to all of the previous Western Desert commanders, do not know of the ultra secret, the Enigma code that's being broken. There's an office that's set up in radio intercept with code-breaking materials in Malta. That is where the British are. It's actually that far forward, but they take precautions to. I don't know I don't know if they were going to do anything special about the people who knew, but they were going to destroy all equipment that could possibly hint that they knew how to break Ultra if it was going on. The British were keeping this so secret that, when they got convoy routings or whatever from the Italians, or they were getting mostly from the German traffic, though they were trying to intercept the Italian information too. They would then, and send this information back. They'd have to, radio it back to Alexandria, and then they would schedule a reconnaissance flight over like the convoys, and then the submarines would attack. So it would appear to the Germans that, oh, well, we must have just been spotted by that reconnaissance aircraft that just happened to catch us here. So they were working really hard not to let a hint of the idea that Ultra was known about, the enigma that was broken. So they never told the Western Desert commanders until Montgomery. So a lot of the Western Desert commanders often disregarded the intelligence that they were getting from, Alexandria because, well, how good is this? Oh, and it often, or at times, doesn't match the reality because Rommel was often not following orders that he was sent. So Montgomery is let in on the secret. Basically just him in his command force, as far as I know. And unlike previous commanders, he decides not to go on the offensive, not to try to push the Germans and the Italians when they know they're weak. They push all the way in there. Before they even fall back to El Alamein, he is starting to build up defenses there. They fall back. He continues to build up the defenses there. The Germans and the Italians are just too exhausted, just too incapable of getting supplies to continue their push in a rapid, time frame, so that Montgomery is able to entrench huge amounts of mines that are still, many of them are still out in the desert area out there. So if you want to go pick up a World War II souvenir, they're still there. They go boom periodically when like some animal steps on one or something. Like 1 million mines or some god-awful number like that were spread out there. Really entrenched. So by the time that the Germans and the Italians launched the first Battle of El Alamein, which is a good offensive, I would say, but it just is no match for the defenses that Montgomery has put into place. And so now that peters out right at about the time of the torch landings. The second battle starts with a huge artillery barrage on the Axis positions, and then the British, who've laid all the mines, actually under a lot of that artillery barrage, go out and clear their own paths through their own minefields so that they can advance on the Germans and the Italians. That basically destroys most of the force. Yes, Rommel is able to get out some escaping forces. They retreat all the way to Tunisia. This is, I know, a long way of getting here, but they retreat all the way to Tunisia. And Tunisia, Rommel realizes he can't hold Tripoli. Tunisia, which had been, while Vichy was more or less neutral, France had been in French territory. He occupies it. There's a couple of key things. One, you can, in basically one evening, take a ship from Sicily to Tunisia through the night, so that you can shift forces at night. It's closer to air bases in Sicily that both can supply air cover, as well as they're using the Gigants, the big, huge, giant gliders that they put engines on them as huge transport planes. So they're able to fly in a lot of forces. Now, in my opinion, it's too little, too late, because obviously they could have done that before Vichy, is occupied. They could have forced that issue. They don't. So it's too little, too late. Had they pushed like they pushed into Tunisia, either using Tunisia, though that would take a long time, but I would believe they could have readily moved huge amounts of forces, or a considerable amount of forces, sort of using Crete to get them into North Africa. Earlier on, before the first Battle of El Alamein, before that whole thing, just as you're starting to push Montgomery back, you just start sending the forces, and that could have turned out very different, but not to be. And so Germans finally do a lot, but just too late. Now, I say the Germans, I keep saying the Germans, but the Italians are still, even in Tunisia, are the large majority of forces. It's really the losses losses overall in North Africa, but definitely the losses in Tunisia is what really knocks Italy out of the war, in my opinion. It's just sort of the final straw, if you will, is the Allies' inability to no, not the well, the Axis inability to push the Americans out of Sicily that makes things, there's the final nail in the coffin. Okay, well, they've just taken that. We did not hold that for 7 turns. Yeah. Those are Italian fighters coming. Okay, well. First, we're going to move these guys down to here. I want to fully just get rid of that guy. He's annoying. We're going to come over here, see if we can shoot these Italians down or mess them up a bit. They've got that anti-tank gun. Ooh, okay, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought. This guy up here, but we're going to bomb the so vulnerable to air attack. 3 down. These guys are going to yeah. Nope, they gotta wait 1 turn to be able to drop mines again or deploy mines. These guys are going to deploy mines here and retreat to there. This guy's an ugly thing here. Reinforce those guys. Okay, well here we're going to keep retiring. Points. going to pursue them any further forward. Okay. You know, this is all congested up here. We're gonna turn this armor around over to here, concentrate it, because we got some anti-tank guns here and here. Okay, well, let's, again, congested. Hopefully that will be good deployment. I'm still going to work on it a little bit. Okay, guys, shoot at the Italians with your 50s. Good. They did a little better than I thought they would. Not this turn. Okay, we know there's some lack there and there, so let's try to keep these guys away. Oh, okay. That's a lot. Artillery, don't know why they're not moving it up. Maybe it's not mobile, as in not properly towed. I know there's some forces, I think, still in there. We actually saved quite a bit of forces from the Kasserine area. They're pulling up there, nothing bothering them yet. Okay, well. Now, chat, do you think, well, we obviously know that it didn't work out. Well, maybe it did work out. Was it a good idea to send all the reinforcements to Tunisia as opposed to trying to withdraw all the forces that Rommel and the Italians had escaped out of? There were a lot of forces, obviously Italian forces, you know, back in Tripoli and Tripoli and Cyrenaica areas, you know, of modern-day Libya. They could have withdrawn all of those forces, not just the forces that had retreated from the Second Battle of El Alamein. Would it have been better to withdraw all of those, or is it better to try to reinforce North Africa? What do you guys think? Try, because if you don't reinforce North Africa, obviously there isn't a big fight there, which would allow the Allies to more quickly invade somewhere else, whether it's Crete, whether it's Sicily or Sardinia, or hey, the south of France or something. If you didn't, they're just, it was just going to take a lot. They'd be able to do things a lot quicker if they didn't fight, or they could have. Was it a good idea to do so, do you think? I have my opinions. I don't have a defined answer. My big thing is obviously putting all the effort is too little too late to win the war, but should you have done so or not at that point? Guns. Okay, these guys are going to... Definitely going to move the anti-tank guns up here in case they push that side. The reason I'm doing that is I want to directly attack here if I can. Giving me good options. I guess maybe they're going to do well, but trying to... Okay, Beam Slam. After the Axis failed to defeat the Allies in Tunisia, they should have withdrawn to Sicily. It's much easier to defend. They tried, but withdrawal was too late. Withdrawal not reinforced Tunisia because the Allies controlled the Mediterranean Sea, so supply lines over the water would be hard. In addition, Africa was a dead end anyways for Germany. Well, yes, but you also look at Italy. Now, okay, you obviously have lots and lots of problems because of Hitler's command style and whatnot. And not allowing things, but it might have come down to Italy. The Italians pushing out. Well, they did not withdraw, and we've sort of boxed ourselves into a corner here, unfortunately. Over here, though, these guys, they can move up to here and reinforce. So we weren't going to keep these guys for long separated from the main armor force. We're just going to sort of hang out there and cover their movements. Now, between these guys over here, I know they brought the AA at us. There, did a little damage. Let's little damage there. Their aircraft has gone home. There's probably AA around there, so I'm probably not... Oh, I maybe should have did some airstrikes early on. Against this with the fighters, they're not effective, but it might have turned the tables. So yeah, I think they definitely beam slam. If once the Kasserine offensive fails, yes, they should have withdrawn. I just think it was a poor idea to attack or to reinforce into Tunisia. And yes, I should have done the artillery first. I keep forgetting to. Let's lay some more mines over here and withdraw. So the minefield, they're going to hold in the mountains where the armor can't really get at them. Wood. I don't think it was Italy losing its colonial empire that made Mussolini's government fall. It was losing the army or armies that, because the very first army he's invading Egypt with gets not only defeated by the British, but basically captured or destroyed by the British, in the early days of that campaign, and it's just one after another major losses, with a final loss in Tunisia, and then the inability to, force the Allied invasion back into the sea does it. It's not, oh, hey, I don't think the Italian people like, oh my God, we've lost Ethiopia, we gotta surrender. I don't think it's anything like that. That is, it's too far away. It's too not expected to, hold against that. I haven't studied the Kasserine battle in detail, but probably battle too much. Yeah, the Germans do all right in it. They definitely come out better than the Americans, but they don't really achieve any of their, shall we say, strategic goals. It's sort of like, hey, yeah, we fought this battle. We did a lot more damage. We captured a lot more prisoners. We disrupted the Americans greatly. Yeah, that all happens. So it's sort of a tactical victory, if you will, but a strategic defeat. That's how I would rate the battle. Reconnaissance. Use those 50s. Good thing we had the infantry there. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Have some tea? Well, I'll have a Coke. How you doing? James Best, how you doing? I have a Coke, though. Don't have any tea here, but... Same spirit. Italy had a GNP equal to that of about Rhode Island and never could have sustained a prolonged conflict, I believe. They were gambling on the Germans winning quickly and gaining some territory. Absolutely, bulldozer. That's quite true. Yeah, Italy is not capable. Italy in its main frontline divisions is still using World War I artillery. Not just World War I models, but actual World War I artillery. So they are far from really ready to play in a world war. But wars are not always won or lost by see if we can kill this. Oh, well, we got that guy first. Let's strafe him, come off the strafe. Tank destroyers. Yep, 10. And they fall back. Okay, good. Well. New commander. Okay, we've got Patton. Well, let's assign Patton to these tanks. I hope it went to the tanks. Oh, Oh. Wait a minute, is he in the... Yeah, he's in the... No, he's in the tank. Good. Oh, I thought for a minute he was in the... fighter. Oh. Woo! I know him. He was in a movie. Yes, absolutely. No, it looks more like Patton than George C. Scott, but yeah, no. Great movie, Patton. The movie Patton is a great movie. I want to come down and kill the... Okay, the Free French could do it. There we have them cut off over here. Trying to see how best. Wow, they survived. Okay. Okay, well now that they're moved off, let's move him over here. And it's rest. They're cut off from supplies. These guys we will reinforce. This way to help hold this flank. There. You guys are going to come up here to hold open our retreat, hopefully. Now the roles are going to reverse. We'll use the infantry to guard the reconnaissance. I heard that Patton was mean and slapped a guy. What a bully. Okay, he did slap a guy. It was not his finest moment. It got him ultimately relieved of command. You have to remember, Patton served through World War I. This happened during the, I think, was it Sicily or later in Italy? I think it was in the later parts of the Sicily campaign, though it took a while for the whole thing to blow up in the press. Basically, there was a guy, he encounters a soldier sitting in a hospital tent. This is sort of portrayed in the movie, so I'm taking it as much from the movie as anything else, though I have read about it. So he encounters this one soldier there who is having an emotional breakdown in a room full of wounded and dying other soldiers, and he's unwounded. So Patton is enraged by this. Now, we would call this today PTSD. In World War I, it was called shell shock. That's how that's how they would have referred to it, and Patton probably would have still referred to it at that point. And he basically accuses the guy of cowardice and slaps him. I think more with his gloves, but I'm not sure. So it's not like he's doing a lot of physical damage or any real physical damage to him. It's more just, slaps him and calls him a coward and whatnot. He's enraged. Like I say, it's not his finest moment. But you have to understand, please, I've seen the movie that talks about the murder. I understand that there were a lot of people that were worried about Patton's attempts to get us into a war with the Soviets, but that's a whole nother story. No, I don't really think he was murdered, but I don't know. Assisted suicide. I don't know. But, okay, so Patton is a general. He's an army commander. And it's one thing to deal with, whether you call it PTSD or shell shock or whatever it is, after the campaign, or definitely after the war, if you will, once you're no longer done. But think of this, and first off, I want to say I've never been in a war. Okay, never been in a war. So this is I'm talking out my ass here. I know some of you are veterans that are likely watching this, but you're whether you're in World War II or you're in Afghanistan, and the enemy's attacking you. And you got one guy, maybe he's done 5 tours in Afghanistan before, and he's been very brave all that time, but he's falling to pieces in the midst of an attack. We're not talking later in a hospital. We're not talking, now this was a combat field hospital. This wasn't back in, proper rear area. This was up nearish the front lines when this happened. But you get a guy who's falling apart. And what are you going to do to try to, because if he falls apart, your whole unit falls apart. Well, you very well may slap the guy. I'm not saying the guy, this hypothetical guy, I'm not saying he's a coward, because I'm saying, hey, he may have done 5 tours in a war and was very brave. It just finally got to him. But you're trying to get him to snap out of it to function for that moment. Okay? Well, that's Patton lived for war. I haven't even finished reading James Best. That's more George C. Scott's interpretation, but there is some truth to it. Okay, so Patton, it isn't the guy in the bunker, because if the guy falls apart, your whole platoon, squad, whatever, could die. So that's definitely one thing. Obviously, it's not that. But if Patton allows, and you got to look at it from his perspective, if he allows his army to fall apart because some guy is unwilling to stay in battle and fight, because a bunch of guys are unwilling to stay in battle and fight, you've lost. You got to understand. And I've studied warfare. Again, I've not been in it. I've studied it. Warfare going back as far as we have written records. You know what? It's not really about killing the other guy. It's about making the other guys give up. Okay? That's it. to just give up. That goes back to like the Greek phalanx or the hoplites, in that they're sort of doing that rugby push with their pikes. They're just pushing. Yeah, sure. They're sharp, pointy things, whether they're the spears, the pikes, or the swords that they're trying to do. But it's also almost about as much as that, just pushing on the enemy. And you're just trying to push them, and you're just trying to get them to give up. Now, normally, once one side or the other gives up, that's when the killing really happens. And so, it's as much about the will to stand and fight. Now, eventually, we saw units here that just get overwhelmed by the enemy, by firepower, that they, because in real life, not necessarily they all surrendered, but the units that were destroyed here, they just crumbled. There's people running around, bunch were captured, whatever, and we see these other forces withdrawing. And yes, you're right, Beam Slam, it's not an actual combat situation, but here he is, a general, in encountering this problem. I am sure, like I say, I'm not saying he did everything right, but I'm trying to understand it from his perspective and what the people knew about at the time, how to deal with this. So he's enraged probably as much that, yes, you're absolutely right about that, Van Bishop, too. And so he's enraged. He shouldn't have done it. But you know what? The guy's platoon commander should have done it, or sergeant, or the guy's company commander should have done it. You're in the damn war. We're fighting the enemy. There's bullets and there's bombs flying around. Maybe once all that is over with and you're no longer, you write a report. Sergeant or Private Smith is unfit for combat duty, whether you want to call it cowardice or just battle trauma. Send him out. Okay, once it's done, that's when you can start dealing with this stuff. And so I'm trying to look through his eyes and his understanding at the time. Again, I'm not trying to say he did the right thing, but I don't think it's such a terrible thing. I really don't. And so that's my account of it. He had no tact or political acumen, but he could lead a fighting force like that. I think Patton had lots of political acumen, quite honestly. He wasn't a politician. Not going to call him a dirty word like that, but because you got to remember, Castanar, warfare is a political act. So all military commanders have to understand that. And this, I highly value Sun Tzu. And if you look at Sun Tzu, it's about making the enemy, not necessarily the enemy, the guys in front of you, but the other side give up is how you win the war. And Sun Tzu wants to do it without fighting. And that doesn't mean that there's no arrows flying anywhere. He doesn't want to have a big Waterloo pitch battle. Sun Tzu wants to maneuver the armies around and then make the other general go, oh shit, if we fight, we're going to lose. Hey, would you sign a reasonable peace treaty that would allow us to go home and we'll give up half our territory or something like that? Give the enemy an out. Give the enemy the idea that, well, hey, we're not going to kill all of you or take all of your land or whatever, but we're going to take half your land, and the other side will go, okay, that's better than maybe losing the whole war. And so generals understand this. They are not necessarily party political, as in, hey, Democrats or Republicans or whatever your nation's kind of thing. That's a different type of politics. But generals understand more than I think you would think about why, at least generals who are any good, should understand why people fight, why things are happening the way they are. He fails to play the buddy game. Monty basically got him thrown under the bus because he kept upstaging him. Yes, Patton could command fighting operations, but failed on making buddies. This is why Bradley got promoted over him. They have to understand the political implications of every action in every battle. Absolutely, Castanar. Yeah, you're right. Patton shows up Montgomery. Eisenhower has a political problem. And I hope you guys find this interesting, because we are talking about the game here in a way, but I hope you were in. I'm definitely here to present the game. So Eisenhower is a political problem. He has a very important ally. The ally has had years of fighting the war, and I'm talking about Britain, that has allowed him to be put in charge, because the British know that American resources, whether it's divisions or food or ammunition or tanks or whatever it is going to keep Britain going, and is going to become, as well as the air campaigns. And yeah, by the time you're talking Sicily or whatever, it is becoming the dominant factor. But he has this political problem, which is the British, and which is Montgomery, and which is British standing in this war. Because again, warfare is a political act. So Eisenhower has this political problem. And the way, or a way to, is you got to keep Monty happy. And so that is part of the pressure. It wasn't just the slap that got him, but unfortunately, he did it in front of reporters. Somebody let it get reported, because you got to remember there's press censorship on everything. So somebody lets that don't become a general with complete lack of political skills. Yeah, and I don't, when you're talking about Patton and Montgomery, yeah, Patton didn't win friends. But I think Patton had a lot of friends in the military, and not just his subordinates. And so, and again, a lot of people take, the Patton movie, which is a great movie, but as being how to look at things. But you got to remember that movie was made in the early 1970s in an anti-war era, and they play up Patton as some sort of wannabe god of war, and war is a terrible thing by that point. And just the fact that there's war, and anybody who fights in a war is terrible. So every movie you have to look at is a part of it is a product of its times. And so please don't too much let that movie influence your ideas of Patton. You have to understand Patton within his time, not just Patton looking back on him. So Patton had a lot of political skill, or diplomatic skills. It was like oil and water with Montgomery, or however you want to do it. They just did not get along. But they were both showboats. I mean, they were both, want to be on the cover of all the magazines. They were both that kind of person. Monty was overrated. The only fight he won with greater was the African War. No, the only thing that Monty really loses is Market Garden. And Monty, to a point, and I don't know how much he looks at Sun Tzu, but if you look at him through Sun Tzu, you know, and I'm going to again paraphrase it. Know not yourself or not your enemy, you will lose. Know yourself but not your enemy. You'll win half the time, you'll lose half the time. But know yourself and know your enemy, you will always win. So Montgomery wants to shape a battlefield. So he wins tactically at great tactics at the first and second Battle of El Alamein. It's just not the flare and dash of improvised maneuvers, and he pursues Rommel's fleeing army very slowly. But you got to remember what's happened to every single British army pursuing the fleeing, at first Italians and then later combined Axis forces. They overstretch and get loose, especially with Rommel turning around and biting them. And so if he had pursued faster, I know this is a great fault of Monty's, but we know now, looking back, Rommel was lost. I mean, Rommel could have done some tactical delaying maneuvers maybe, but he had no real ability to turn around and take out Monty's army. But does Monty know this? Where Monty is looking at, hey, every time we almost made it to Tripoli once, and then Rommel shows up, and then we kept other times going back and forth. Hey, let's just, we have the Americans landing already, because you got to realize the Americans have already landed in, Algeria and Morocco. We got the Americans over there. Hey, we're just going to take our time. We're going to move up. We're going to be sure of everything that we do, and we're gonna keep going. And so I would put that down to Monty's good tactics as well. Oh, you were being sarcastic about the bully comment. Not sure. I don't catch these things, James Bess, in some of the chats. That's what I said. In Europe itself, he was carried by pure American power and their plans. I rate Monty higher than you do. I'm not saying I say he's a pretty damn good general. Africa war was lost the moment Hitler decided not to invade Malta. I would say the Mediterranean was lost when Hitler invades Russia. That's when the Mediterranean is lost. Not just Africa, but the Mediterranean theater is lost at that point. That would be my assessment of things. That was when the whole war was lost. Well, yes, in fact, I'm very much of the belief that I forget to do the artillery that I should have done first here, but we can punish this unit. We can artillery. Okay, since we can't hit these guys over here, we're going to advance up here a little bit. The Martyr went over here. We're going to just sort of sit over on this good ground to hold the flank. These guys will move here. Okay, that's, I take, being very secure. See, his command radius is pretty big. That helps out units within it. Yeah. Okay, so these guys are all fleeing in good, well, reasonable order. Well, we can see the AI not following the principle of concentration of force. This armor unit. Oh, here's Rommel. Oh, I didn't realize Rommel's here. If they kept this armor unit here, up with this armor here, they would be doing much better. Okay, I'm gonna come up here and allow that statement. People are Beam Slam was using a naughty word, or something that Twitch thought might have been a naughty word, as in Hitler. But I believe they would live in far worse if they had not made those decisions. Oh yeah, no, yeah, the Nazis' victory would have been much worse. Monty may have been a good general, but Harold Alexander was better. That very well may be. I also respect Harold Alexander. I don't know his. I read Monty's book. That's one of the reasons I like Monty. He wrote a book on the history of warfare, going back about as far as you can, up until about, I don't know. He includes World War II in it. I read that many years ago, so I have a good opinion of Monty. Germany was screwed when Hitler went out of bed. Yes. Monty was a World War I general. Well, they all were. I mean, they were all the generals, basically all the armies were World War I officers. That's just about. Okay, did we move the air? Yes. Okay. That air, reconnaissance air over here. Okay, we're going to fly over this way. Get away from those, but we're just seeing what's going on. We'll continue this. Okay, they cleared that one minefield away. Looks like coming up against this one. Well, I think you're overextending yourself there. That's definitely not a good move. Yes, well, the carriers do sort of change the navies a bit more. You're going to move away from there, but over there, cut them off deeply from supplies. We're going to come back to here and force there. Okay. Let's look at this somewhat tactically here. Use the Free French. Now, one of the complaints about Kasserine and all was that the Ferdinand, or however you pronounce his name, did not well support with materiel the Free French forces, so they were not in good shape at this time, which was a mistake, obviously. Some drew different conclusions than others, like Rommel, Guderian, Patton, as opposed to Monty. See, it's not that you're wrong, but I think to a point, you have to understand what Monty had to work with. Okay, in North Africa, I've sort of explained how the situation, you know, he didn't want to push hard and fast because he was afraid of what happened to all the previous generals. in particularly Sicily. I wouldn't call that World War I type battles that he was fighting, but he was moving a bit slower because of the Sicilian terrain. Rommel does his sort of end around. He always wanted to go up to Palermo, and he wanted to land in Palermo, but try to go up and cut them off instead of fight through the mountains. Now, by the time you're getting to D-Day and beyond, Britain is exhausted. Britain, if you're looking at a strategic war game, they're out of manpower. You know, they just really can't. They really just can't operate like the Americans can. And so I really think it's more of what they had to work with. And maybe, I don't know if I'm saying that well, if you're understanding it, just Britain was exhausted by that point. By the time you get to D-Day and beyond, because, you know, they're still fighting in Italy. They've invaded a Greek island and then realized, oh yeah, we're here, but we can't hold it with enough air power, so they evacuate it. One of the Greek islands, I forget its name, small one. They evacuate it. You know, they're doing a lot of other stuff. They're just exhausted. They just don't have the manpower to replace losses. They're just mentally, economically, whatever, exhausted. So Montgomery realizes this. So the dashing that Patton wants to do, and can do very well, is just not what Montgomery has to work with, and his army is not organized for it. It just isn't. They changed the navies, but they were very primitive. Only the Japanese Navy really understood it. Few in the U.S. did. Mostly the naval leaders were still battle. Oh, yes, you're talking about the brown shoe versus black shoe Navy. I understand that. Monty would have been great at the Somme. Whole British military is still on World War I tactics. I don't know that I would agree with that. Hello, Urbis. How you doing? Monty had a defensive mind. It worked in the desert. He could afford to lose. He could afford to lose a lot of men and material. In France, he was too cautious. I don't know. Imagine having 30 divisions sitting against 5 and not pushing into the Rhineland. Well, that comes down to there's so much more dealing with France and many other issues with what's going on there, whether they should have pushed. Well, they should have pushed into the Saarland and beyond. That's fully true, but that's much more of a, we know that now than we did then, and it's much more a French problem than anything else. Okay, well, this time Gamer's going to remember to use air power. No damage, but still we're using our air power, and we're using artillery. Okay, we're going to use the special ability here. We could attack here regularly, but that would not be in our favor. What we're going to do is sneak attack, damage enemy unit without taking damage in return. Costs us 10 points, but we got 400 or 840 of these, whatever you call these types of reinforcement points or whatever they're called in this game. Play too many games. Do this, sneak attack. Okay, well, no damage, but they didn't take any damage either. I think well, I think we can do this. And we'll just hold there. With that, they're going to dig in there. They're going to dig in here along next to these Free French. Tank destroyers, which function as anti-tank guns. We're going to guess that there's somebody. Nope, not right there. Okay, we missed that guess. We'll strafe these guys. No damage, but they got a strafing. We're going to move the trucks over. Artillery via truck. These guys are up to here because this we're seeing is sort of their major operation. That's all pushed down into there. I love talking with you guys about this history. I hope you can tell. But that's why I love playing these games out, like Order of Battle. Because I also do deep dives into the history, trying to understand what was going on. What fascinates me by all this.